Well, it's almost midnight again, and the whole world is asleep, but we're not. And if you're still awake, you've come to the right place, because this is the time of night when the good movies finally crawl their way out to play. You know the ones I'm talking about, not the ones made for everyone in the daylight, but the ones you found sleeping in your bed, changing channels after midnight, or on a banned VHS passed around by your friends, or maybe even in a spooky old theater on the outskirts of town. The handmade films, the strange ones, the spooky ones, the ones that refused to behave. Well, here on Midnight Movies with Chase, we dive into that spooky, strange world of midnight films and talk about what makes them so great. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. Well, it's late night Saturday night again, boys and girls. Almost the witching hour. The streets are quiet, the moon is high, and the lights are low. The rest of the world might be asleep. But we're not. This is the time for monsters, the time for mischief. So turn those lights down low and let that neon glow wash over you, because this is when the good movies finally come out to play. Welcome to Midnight Movies with Chase. You know, horror movies used to feel just a little more dangerous, not just on screen, but in the way you discovered them. You didn't just scroll past them on some streaming menu, you stumbled on them. Maybe it was late night cable, some forbidden VHS that somebody's older cousin or uncle got that they probably shouldn't have had and been showing you. Or maybe it was one of those nights where you were flipping through channels and suddenly there it was. A hockey mask, a lake, and that unmistakable feeling that someone was about to make a very poor life decision in the woods. And for a whole generation of horror fans, the Friday the 13th movies weren't just films, they were late night rituals, a rite of passage, so to speak. They were the kind of movies that you watched with the lights off, on the couch, maybe on the floor, a shag carpet somewhere, some wood paneling behind you, and just enough bad decisions happening on screen to make your parents shake their heads. Because Friday the 13th is legendary, and it is today. So it feels like a perfect time to revisit some of the best and wildest of the series. So tonight on Midnight Movies with Chase, we're diving into 3 fascinating entries into this series. One that reinvented Jason, one that might just be the best movie of the entire franchise, and one where the filmmakers basically looked at the rule book and said, yeah, let's throw that thing directly into the wood chipper.
The new releases have arrived at Hollywood Video. And only Hollywood Video gives you 5-day rentals on even the newest releases, like You've Got Mail, Holy Man, and Saving Private Ryan.
Hello? Over here. Showbiz.
Yeah, they chew you up and they spit you out.
5-day rentals on everything, only at Hollywood Video.
I'm coming to get you Saturday night.
Freddy's Nightmares, Saturday at 7 on KTTY.
Welcome back to Midnight Movies with Chase. This is the show where we talk about horror movies that felt like they belonged on after midnight. The kind you discovered on VHS shelves, on cable TV, or on that one sleepover where somebody's brother decided the evening's entertainment should involve teenagers making terrible decisions with no clothes on. And if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, chances are you ran into Jason Voorhees at some point. The amazing thing about the Friday the 13th franchise is how quickly it became a cultural phenomenon. The original movie came out in 1980, a great year, I might say. Low budget, independent, gritty, a little rough around the edges, a Halloween knockoff, but audiences loved it. And suddenly, Jason Voorhees became one of the most recognizable horror icons ever created. But the series also evolved in some very strange directions, which brings us to the 3 movies we're looking at tonight. 3 different eras of hockey mask wielding craziness, 3 very different approaches to Jason himself and what a Friday the 13th movie is and could be. All right, before we get started from a crazy entry from 1986, how about a little word from back in the day?
If you think $2 can't buy you much entertainment anymore, take a look at what Errol's Video Club members are watching tonight. Trading Places, War Games, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Tootsie. Membership is just $15 and let your whole family enjoy some of the finest video entertainment available anywhere. Over 1,600 titles, each for rent at just $2 the first night and only $1 each extra night. Visit any of the convenient Errol's Video Clubs soon, or look for our ad in the Post.
There's this weird guy on Channel 9 this fall, and I guarantee he'll give you nightmares. His name is Freddy something or other, but immediately following Freddy, I'm back. Now, if I'm Mistress of the Dark and Freddy's gonna give you nightmares, I would think twice before falling asleep Saturday night. Remember, don't miss A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Nightmare, and me, Elvira, Saturdays beginning at 10 p.m., nowhere else but Channel 9.
Elvira's Movie Macabre tonight at 11.
All right, you caught me. It is time to dive into maybe the funniest outsider entry into this franchise. It is 1986's Jason Lives. Now, by the time this movie came out in 1986, the Friday the 13th series had already cranked out 5 movies in 6 years, which is kind of a release schedule that would make Hollywood executives nowadays break out into a cold sweat. It takes them 2 years to get 8 episodes of a TV show. But the producers knew something back then. Something had to change. They had done 5 of these movies, and by part 5, audiences were starting to notice something. Jason wasn't actually even in that movie, which, when you're running a franchise about a guy in a hockey mask, is not ideal. So when Tom McLaughlin came in to direct part 6, he made a decision that completely changed the character forever. He definitively, without question, made Jason supernatural. Now, before this, there had been some conjecture. Now, I was always of the opinion that Jason was supernatural. How do you survive all that stuff and keep coming back if you're not supernatural? But this movie answered that question once and for all, because the opening scene is basically a love letter to Universal Monsters and Frankenstein. Because lightning strikes Jason's grave and boom, he comes back from the dead, Frankenstein style. And suddenly, Jason isn't just a big angry guy in the woods anymore. There's no question he is evil, demonic, demon, monster, craziness from beyond the grave. And the tone reflects that shift. Jason Lives is the first Friday the 13th film that really actually leans into humor and self-awareness. It has the whole James Bond 007 opening, and the movie kind of pokes fun at the franchise while still delivering what fans wanted to a degree. This movie is really a PG-13 film. It doesn't fit in that way with the exploitation of the rest of the franchise. And honestly, it's not one of my favorites overall. I love that ode to the Universal Monsters. You still got camp counselors making crazy life choices. You still have foggy cemeteries, Jason rising from the grave, a shot of him walking across the lake floor. These images turn Jason into a full-blown paranormal, supernatural, slasher villain horror icon. But the movie is relatively light on the rest of the stuff that you come to know from the franchise. So it's kind of this crazy mismatch of ideas. Some stuck, some didn't. But this is why it is so entertaining, because it's so wild and all over the place. And for many fans, it still ranks pretty high in their overall rankings of the Friday the 13th franchise in the entire series. For me, it's a bit lower, but I do understand the appeal, and it is a wild entry into the franchise.
Oh, I do enjoy an evening with a little light entertainment. But when your video heads get dirty, you lose your picture. Not a pretty sight. Happily, this new Polaroid video cassette will help you. It actually cleans your heads as it plays, so dirty heads needn't haunt you. New Polaroid video cassettes. Get the picture?
Let's see, where's somebody? Oh, how about this man here? Hi, how's it going?
Great.
What's your name?
Bill Hennessy.
Bill. You know, being Halloween and everything, I was just wondering if you had a big treat for me.
Oh, I sure have.
I bet you do, Bill.
Sure do.
But I think we better, I think Bill has a big treat for me. Let's move on now.
Now we come to the crown jewel, as far as I'm concerned, in the franchise. That is Friday the 13th, the final chapter. And first of all, let's just take a moment to appreciate the confidence of that title, as if Hollywood was ever going to let a profitable horror franchise stay dead. They were not going to kill off the golden calf. They weren't going to do it, and that's what Jason in his hockey mask was. But that title got a lot of people to the theaters. But at the time, Paramount really did believe in their heart that they might just wrap things up right here, which might explain why the movie feels so intense. This one is meaner. It's a bit darker. It's more brutal. It's got more exploitation in it than any other film. I actually ranked all of the Friday the 13th movies by their naughtiness factor, by how much skin they showed, and surprisingly to many people, this one is number one. The amount of scenes, the amount of things it shows, all of that stuff. There's another entry in this franchise that a lot of people believe should be number one, but if you compare them, this one takes the cake in the naughtiness factor, also in the kills, and it is just full of 80s energy. This one is directed by Joseph Zito, and Zito had previously directed The Prowler, which is one of the nastiest slashers of the early 80s, and he brought that same gritty energy to this movie, but the real secret weapon here was the return of Tom Savini. Savini had already become a legend in the world of horror effects by this time. This was the era of practical makeup, and it was glorious because everything was done by hand. Every effect was physically built and present on set. And Savini's work in this movie is second to none. It is incredible. The kills are inventive. The gore effects are intense. And the film has a raw, dangerous feeling that a lot of slashers never quite captured. Then you add Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis in here, and it kicks up the 80s energy a lot. Then you get shifting point of views because you have a young Corey Feldman basically playing the young version of Tom Savini in this movie, and you have his mother and older sister and their POVs. Then you have a group of the college kids out at the lake and all of their sexual energy. You have the Doublemint twins in this movie. You have one of the stars of Weird Science in this movie. You have Crispin Glover in this movie. Then you have someone else who's basically hunting Jason. So you have all of these shifting POVs. You have different aspects going on. You have the kids partying over here, kids going to the lake. You have the mom with her family. You have the guy out on his own. And it brings something very unique to this movie that others don't have. You have a lot of likable characters that you're rooting for, you're enjoying. And then Corey Feldman is the icing on the cake, because Tommy wasn't just another kid in a horror movie. He is a monster kid. He is a kid like everyone who is watching this that loves horror films. He understands monsters. He immerses himself in that world, which makes the final showdown scene between Tommy and Jason one of the most memorable moments in the entire franchise. And when that ending hits, it feels like the series has actually reached a conclusion. Jason has finally met his match in this kid who knows all things monsters. And of course, horror villains rarely stay dead for long, but for many fans, the final chapter is the definitive Friday the 13th movie. It has all the best aspects rolled into one. It has the beautiful hot cast. It has lots of nudity and exploitation, lots of inventive kills, incredible practical effects. Then it has a stand-in for the fan and kids POV in Tommy Jarvis, who is an icon in Corey Feldman of 80s movies. It has everything that you could want. It has a great portrayal of Jason. To me, it is the standout and all-encompassing film of the franchise. If you're gonna watch one to rule them all, it is Friday the 13th. The final chapter.
Hey, Joe Bob Briggs here to tell you that Friday nights this summer on TNT, we've got stuff that's scarier than my second ex-wife when she forgets to take her medication. It's called Monster Vision, and the idea here is that we've gathered together some of the greatest, well, greatest doesn't quite cover it. The greatest movies we could get for $20, and I'll be bringing you a double feature every Friday night at 11, which, let's face it, if you're home at that time, then your social life is already pitiful. But I guarantee you, you watch one of these flicks like The Creeping Unknown or Motel Hell, they might be scary, but they're not near as scary as what you'll find hanging around the bar at Last Call. If you know what I mean.
Just get it over with.
And I think you do.
Watch Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs, Friday at 11 on TNT.
I don't want to have to tell you again.
And that brings us to the third and final movie. It is 1993's Jason Goes to Hell. We've jumped almost a decade from the last movie we talked about, and this is where the franchise takes a hard left turn to absolute insanity. And a lot of people hate this movie. I am not one of them. Because Jason Goes to Hell is one of the strangest horror sequels ever made. By the early 90s, Paramount had stepped away from the series, and the rights ended up with New Line Cinema, the same studio responsible for A Nightmare on Elm Street, which meant the long-awaited Freddy vs. Jason idea was suddenly on the table. But before they got there, they made this movie right here, this little doozy, and it opens up with something the audience had never seen before, which is saying something in a franchise that has this many movies. But here, Jason is completely set up. You have all the horror tropes. You're asking yourself, what is going on? Because you have this beautiful blonde bombshell out in the woods alone, and she's doing every single thing that will get you killed in a monster movie or any type of horror film, and it feels like it's purposely turned up to 11, and that's because it is. She is bait. She works for the FBI, and she's going to lead Jason to getting blown up by the FBI, which is honestly an incredibly bold, creative choice. But then the movie introduces a big twist. Jason isn't just a guy anymore. He's a demonic entity that can possess other people. He's basically a deadite. We introduced the Necronomicon in here, and there's a lot of this movie that is tongue-in-cheek for sure. We basically have a character that's quoting Jaws at one point. You get the whole thing. But the movie has an interesting concept because throughout the movie, different characters essentially become Jason. It's weird, it's messy, but you get to see how a lot of different people portray this character without a mask. And for years, fans didn't quite know what to make of it. But if you look back on it, it has some extreme exploitation angles, some extreme kills in this movie, and some very interesting choices on how to play Jason, and a lot of underrated practical effects that absolutely sing in the 4K restoration of this film. But over time, because of those elements, the movie developed more of a cult following, especially among fans who just appreciate how wildly it swings for the fences. The film even includes a quick appearance, like I said, of the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead universe, which suggests Jason might be connected to the same supernatural demonic forces that Ash deals with. So in recent years, the movie has gotten more renewed attention, and then recently with this 4K restoration from Arrow, people have started to remember how ambitious this movie was. You get to relive those unrated versions of this film in their full practical effects glory, including the legendary moment at the end when the hand comes up and pulls Jason's mask down. This entry is absolutely bizarre. It 100% qualifies for a midnight movie, and it is absolutely, in my opinion, underrated and ambitious and crazy as hell. Jason Goes to Hell. Honestly, the Friday the 13th series has always been a little chaotic and all over the place. Different directors, different tones, different versions of Jason, but that unpredictability is also part of the charm. These are comfort movies to me. And if you're here on Midnight Movies, where the rest of the world is asleep and we're not, then you have to appreciate the term comfort horror movie. These are movies that you watched at summer sleepovers, that you enjoyed again and again for the exploitation angle, the practical effects, the sort of nostalgia of that era. On nights like these, on Friday the 13th, they are a must. They take us back to a different place in time. Not just Crystal Lake, but a different place in our memories. And that unpredictability mixed with memories and nostalgia and the old school filmmaking techniques of these horror films are all part of the charm. Because whether you discovered these movies on VHS back in the day, the movie theater, a drive-in, late night cable TV with the legendary Joe Bob Briggs, or Elvira, or Up All Night on USA, during that sleepover where somebody picked this movie when the parents weren't looking, it doesn't matter, because these are all midnight movies of our memories that we absolutely love, and they help Jason Voorhees become one of the most iconic figures in not only horror history, but in cinema history. And nights like this, Friday the 13th, when the rest of the world is asleep and we're not, it is the perfect time and the perfect excuse to revisit a legend at the lake. And before we wrap it up tonight on Midnight Movies with Chase, I want to know something honestly. Give me a cap tip and be honest. Which Friday the 13th movie, if you had to pick only one, would be your choice as your favorite, the only one you could watch from now on? Is it the final chapter, That would be mine. Is it Jason Lives? Or is it one of the later entries like Jason Goes to Hell? Or even the 2009 remake, which might be my second favorite in the entire franchise? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed Midnight Movies with Chase, usually we take a look at one movie, old school, late night, horror host style like we all grew up with. It is my homage to those great hosts that I have loved so much. Make sure you like and subscribe and stick around and join the family here at AV Pop Culture. And make sure you don't miss the next episode of Midnight Movies or all of my other great videos that take you back to the VHS aisles of our memories. And that's what I've got for you this time, and I hope you enjoyed it. But until next time, the rest of the world is asleep, but we're not. So be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture and Midnight Movies, and I'll see you real soon.